The floor is yours.
So yeah, so I mean, like Jonas was saying, Jonas grew up in Sweden and he moved to Brazil, and he likes Brazil and Sweden. I exchanged for him, so when he left Sweden, I had to, take over for Jonas, because otherwise, there's nobody to take care of Sweden otherwise. So I had to move here, and it's nice to see you, Vivi. Normally, I like to play around with Zoom a little and get
Hi,
myself.
Abby.
Hi. I like to go on Zoom and set myself some sunglasses and stuff like that, but I'm not going to do that today. What I am going to do instead is try and share my screen and show you a presentation. I don't have any intention of promoting any country or any language or any kind of culture. It's just something that I like to start my presentation with, because everybody thinks it's interesting when I say namaste. And that's the only part of me that's Indian, actually. I grew up in India, but I must say that I think as early as 5 or 6 years old, I think I might have felt that I don't belong in India. And I don't know whether that's something that any of you feels, but if you do, then I think I understand what you feel like. It doesn't have to be because you don't feel like you like the country or anything like that. It's got nothing to do with that. I think it's more a question of identity and how you feel, and whether you feel like you fit in this space that has been provided to you. And I guess at some point I decided that I wanted to move out of the country. So the idea was, here is a 12-year-old Abhi that's very much interested in science, is shit at math, and he decides that, he decides that he wants to study abroad. He wants to go and live somewhere else. But 12-year-old Abhi doesn't have money, and mommy and daddy are the ones that are paying for everything. So poor Abhi has to just study in India, right, for this time being. And so after I finished my bachelor's degree, which was in electronics and communications engineering, actually over here, right? So I end up deciding, okay, I want to do my master's. So I actually go learn. So in India, you have these coaching centers. I think you have them in Brazil as well. You have these coaching centers for English, coaching centers for GRE, TOEFL, all of these consultancies, basically. So I went to one of these people, tried to learn how to do the GRE test and things like that. And as usual, given that how shit I am with math, my GRE was crap. My English is amazing. So my TOEFL scores were through the roof, but my GRE score was nuts. So I was like, okay, crap, I'm not going to be able to make it. But then also, so I don't really come from an economically strong family. My background isn't, like my parents don't make a lot of money. My father became unemployed very early in my life as well. So around the age of like 14, he became unemployed and wasn't able to find a job afterwards due to health reasons. So going abroad was not really an option. So then I had to take a job. So I found a job. So my bachelor's was electronics and communications engineering. And then I found a job as a software engineer. I have no background in computer science. I have zero experience with programming. But this company basically takes you if you can finish a test of 10 quiz questions, 10 puzzles, basically, right? And to my luck, so I'm actually coaching my classmates when I'm in engineering school. I'm actually coaching my classmates to attend interviews and good grooming, dressing up, attending discussions, group discussions and things like that, grooming them on their English, things like that. And then other friends of mine are doing this thing with teaching them about math and puzzles and things like that. So one afternoon we're sitting having lunch, and my friends are going through these puzzle questions for this company. And I happen to overhear them, right? Next day, we are going to this company, and my classmates, I don't take these tests because I was like, I'm going to go abroad, I'm going to study. My friends are like, oh, you such a big badass, why don't you try taking these tests? So Abhi's like, oh, okay, I think my card has been called. I need to show that I'm not bluffing. So I go and I take this test, and to my luck, it's the exact same question the previous day that I heard that came up. And my short-term memory is that of an elephant. I can remember everything. So I get 10 on 10 on the puzzles. And then it's an interview. I smash the interview. It's easy. I mean, like you go in and you just act all strong and mighty. Done. So I got the job, right? Zero computer science experience. So then they put me through 4 months of training and I become a software engineer, the worst software engineer ever. As in that company's history, I'm fairly certain nobody's been as bad as I have been at programming. But I still managed to work for 3 years. Yeah, so I keep my job for 3 years. I get paid to do bad coding for 3 years. And then 2009, the 2008 housing bubble in the US bursts. The world goes into a recession. Everybody starts losing jobs. And I realize, okay, I think I might get fired. I might get laid off. So what do? I take the opportunity to start looking for higher studies. 2009, I'm moving to Sweden. Now, here is where the questions that are part of this statement comes, right? This presentation, living, studying, and working in Sweden. So I have to move to Sweden, and there are a ton of challenges that I faced on the way there. But there was one question that was on the poster: why Sweden? So rewinding back to 5-year-old Abhi, right? So 5-year-old Abhi knows, has heard of Sweden because in India, we have this subject in school called general knowledge. And that's a subject that you have to study all the way until, I think, 5th grade. So until you're like 10, 11 years old, you have to do this, this subject. And general knowledge is one of those boring subjects because, well, for me, it was amazing because I'm a class 1 nerd. But most students found it super boring because you're sitting there memorizing capitals and currencies and stuff that nobody really cares about, actually. Like, who cares if there are 7 oceans in the world? Well, you should care, but that was also something that we had to learn, right? So anyway, we were sitting there and we were learning this stuff, and the subject of Stockholm comes up. So I learned that in Sweden, the capital is Stockholm, and everybody wears clogs. So if you don't know what clogs are wooden shoes, right? So this is what I learned about Sweden, and this is all I know about Sweden. Until this is the only thing I know about Sweden until I actually come to Sweden. So until I realize I'm going to Sweden. So that's when I started looking up Sweden. So now we're fast forwarding. We're coming to when I start applying. So now it's 2008. Let's say fall, somewhere like September, October, November, right? I'm looking for higher studies opportunities. And of course, like everybody in the world, literally everybody in the world that's looking for higher studies, one of the first places they would think of is the US. No surprise. So what do? I'm looking up universities in the US, and a friend of mine who was also a software engineer with me had gone to the University of Maryland in 2008. So the year that I'm applying, she's already in the US. So I'm like, maybe I should go there because she has an electronics background. She was a software engineer. I'm an electronics background. I'm a software engineer. She studied communications engineering. I studied communications engineering. She went to a university in the US studying communications engineering. Maybe I should do the same. So I tried to apply to a university in the US. And then while making that application, I was like, maybe I should try to apply for a few more universities, like trying to diversify my portfolio of investments. So I'm like, okay, let's do this. So I make my application to a university in Germany. I make an application to a university in Scotland. And then while making this application, I find that in Germany, there is another program called the Erasmus Mundus program. The Erasmus Mundus program is a program that actually is funded by the European Union. So if you didn't already know this kind of program comes with a full scholarship where the tuition fees are paid and you actually get a monthly scholarship of approximately 900 to 1100 euros. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money, right? Per month, and during the entire period of your studies. Plus, you actually get to study in more than one country. So this is actually a partnership between different universities, and the program was called Space Masters, and I love space. So I was like, yes, I'm going to become an astronaut. So I, not, but I applied to this program, Space Master. But the thing was that when I looked up the program, I was actually looking at Sweden. So I applied to Germany. I was looking at the program. It came up in Germany. I was searching for Germany. It came up in this university called University of Würzburg. Now, University of Würzburg is one of these very, very, very old universities. So old, it'll make history look like it's young, right? It's freaking old. So this university has this program, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to apply to this program. Guess what happens? No, you can't apply to us. You need to apply to the university that is coordinating this program. And that's this university called Luleå University. Where in God's name is this place? It's in Sweden. Where is it in Sweden? In the freaking north. It's above the polar circle. I'm like, oh my God, okay. I'm going to freeze to death. Right? But I make the application. I go to university. I go to this website. At that point in time, it used to be called studera.nu. It doesn't exist anymore, but I went to this website because this is the website that was the national application website for Sweden then. So I go to this website, I start making an application. What I did not realize at this point in time is that Sweden actually has free education for everybody from around the world at that time. So this is back in 2009, please note, right? So 2009, Sweden still has free education for the entire world. And I'm like, wait, I don't have to pay fees? I like this country already. So then I start looking for other programs. And then I realized there is no application fee. So the US, actually, when you apply, you actually have to pay an application fee, right? And this country does not ask you for application fees. It doesn't ask you for tuition fees. What in God's name is this country? So I start looking at this website and I'm like, okay, I'm going to apply for one more program at least, right? And I'm super lazy. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do the hard work of writing a new motivation letter or anything like that. I'm just going to take an old motivation letter, change up the name of the university, change the name of the program, tweak it a little so it looks good and make my application. Typical student mentality, right? So I do this and guess what happens? While looking for the program, I find a program called microtechnology, which is what you're seeing on the slide right here. Microtechnology is the name of the program that was offered at Chalmers at that point in time. So I put this application down and I'm done. Sweden is done. So Germany is done. That was Aachen. Sweden is done. And Scotland is done. And also the US. So 5 universities, 4 countries. Everybody rejects me. Everybody rejects me except for Chalmers. So why Sweden? Well, actually kind of Sweden chose me, didn't it? It kind of was like, okay, either I go back to being software engineer monkey sitting on the keyboard with coffee and not knowing what I'm doing, or I go to Sweden and try to become a different kind of monkey. So I go to Sweden. But on the way there, so now we know that we're going to Sweden and starts the headache because of the fact that I need to get a visa for Sweden, but at this point in time, I had kind of become a little late because again, student mentality plus working, I could not keep track of all the things that was necessary. I actually did not know that I needed a visa until somebody told me I needed a visa. I did not know that something called a visa existed until that point in time. This was nuts. I don't even know why I thought back when I was 12 that I was going to go study abroad. Stupid me, right? So here I am looking for like an opportunity. Somehow I have to find a visa. I hustle, I find a way. I have to like barter with another student who has a difficulty finding a date because he already has an interview date and I don't. But then I get a later date. And so we decide to exchange because he doesn't have the amount of money necessary to be able to put in the bank account to show that he can go to Sweden. But I have it. So we exchange dates. So there's a lot of hustling going on and international roaming phone calls being made to find accommodation because at that time, accommodation is not offered to international students. Only exchange students were being offered accommodation. So I had absolutely no way of finding a place. So I'm making phone calls to Sweden, international roaming phone calls to Sweden, trying to find a place to live. And there's this one dude who answers and says, okay, you know what? I have a roommate already at the moment, but I'll let you live with me for about a month. And worst case scenario, I'll pitch a tent in my living room. Okay, a tent in a living room is where I'm going to be sleeping for 1 month. This is the only thing I knew. No email, no confirmation, nothing. I'm packing my bags. My cousin who runs a travel agency tells me he's not going to give me a ticket unless I get my visa. My visa arrives on the 5th of September. University started on the 31st of August. So I'm not in Sweden yet. I'm writing to the admissions office and trying to like get my registration date extended and stuff like that. And they say you have until the 11th of September to register. I get my visa on the 5th of September. I get my ticket on the 5th of September. I fly on the 9th of September. I arrive on the 9th and my brain is imploding, right? Like literally, because okay, so for those of you that have never met me, I think including Gabriela, only I think in the entire gallery only Renato and Jonas have met me. I'm a fairly small guy, right? I'm not like physically I'm not huge or anything like that. I'm fairly small. So that means you have to imagine a small Indian dude with a backpack, a sky bag, 2 trolley bags, dressed up in layers, right? First time ever flying international, right? So I've flown all of 3 times in my entire life up until this point in time, and the 3rd one was an international flight. So I'm landing in Gothenburg with like, I don't know, like I'm a nomad or something, like, you know, I've got like these 7 bags with me looking like a penguin, like waddling around. And it's September, so it's kind of warm still. And especially if you've got layers on, you're going to be sweating like nuts. And now I've got bags to go with, so I'm like literally a waterfall. So the only thing I know is I'm taking the shuttle, I'm coming to the city. And here comes the experience, the challenges of having moved to Sweden, right? Moving to and having moved to Sweden. So the thing is basically that I arrive, I have to make a phone call to this dude to find out where he lives. The dude who said he's going to pitch a tent in his living room. So I call him and he gives me a name to write down and tells me, show it at the public transport office. They will send you to the right place. So I go to the public transport office with this text. I show it to the lady at the counter. She's very kind. She's very sweet. She prints out a map of Central Station, Gothenburg, right? So for those of you that need to have this context, Gothenburg has trams, okay? So there are trams, which means they run on rails. And then you've got buses and boats. All these 3 are part of the public transport system. So Central Station has many platforms and they're all located in different parts of Central Station. So if this is Central Station, you got a platform here, platform here, platform here, platform here, building in the middle, all sorts of stuff. So you've got to like walk over to another place to get to your platform you have to get to. So lady prints out the map, circles my platform, tells me to go out, and, you know, simple thing. She says, go this way. Now, I know that this is a flat screen, so you probably don't get the perspective here, but my hand is kind of pointing a bit backwards, all right? So I'm not really just pointing to my right. I'm actually pointing a bit to my back and right. And that's kind of how her hand goes. And the sad thing is, there is an exit both on the right side and behind her. I go out the exit behind her. She meant that I should go out the right side. I go out the wrong exit. I'm standing somewhere with a map in my hands. And I must also say, Indians are not good at maps. Generally, we're not good with maps. We don't know how to read them because we usually don't have access. We don't use them, the paper map. We don't really use them. So we just talk to people, right? Like, hey, where's this place? And if he doesn't know, he or she is going to tell us approximately the next point to which we can go. And there you will ask somebody and you will just keep asking people to get to the place you want to get to. until Google Maps happened, right? So this was a point when I didn't have a smartphone. It's still 2009. So big phones, stuff like that, they don't really, they're not really cheap. So I have this tiny W700i Sony Walkman phone. And I'm out this place with these bags, with this map, trying to hold it upside down or whichever direction, trying to figure out where it is that I'm supposed to go. And all I can see is A and B, and I'm supposed to go to G. And I'm like, what the hell? Why am I not able to see G, right? There's this one dude that comes up from behind me, puts his hand on my shoulder and says, I don't think you want to die today. And I'm like, what the hell? Who are you? Why are you touching me? And how am I going to die? Like, so many questions. The guy basically says, well, you're standing on tram tracks. Chances are that there is a tram that's going to come. It's going to go kring, 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 and then it's going to run you over. Right. Thank you. Moving over to the platform. And then he's like, okay, I see you're lost. Where do you need to go? G. Okay, let me show you. And he walks with me. This dude walks with me over to the other side. There are 3 buildings in between here. There's the entire central station, actually, in between me and platform G. So he literally walks me over to G, explains the public transport system, gives me his phone number, tells me, if you don't know where you are at some point in time, just ring me, give the phone to somebody, and I'll explain to them what your situation is, and they can try to help you. Like, this dude was probably God sent, right? Like, super sweet. And here is where the next challenge comes up. So Swedes are very friendly, very, very friendly, but they're very hard to make friends with. So what happens is basically this. Dude gives me his phone number, shows me he's friendly, and me, I'm like, ooh, new friend, sweet, amazing. I'm going to invite this guy to everything. So I'm at Chalmers, right? So I'm going to Chalmers. I've finished registering myself. And as a new student, you get a lot of freebies. You get these free tickets to football matches and boat rides and museums and all sorts of things. And I'm like, yes, I'm going to have my new Swedish friend and I'm going to see a football match. Never been to a football match in my life. So I'm going to take somebody with me. Cool. I call this dude up. The dude is like, I'm sorry, I'm a bit busy right now. Maybe next time. Okay. Cool. No problem, man. It's all good. Where's your friends? It's all good. It's all good. 2 weeks later, make the phone call. Hey, you want to go to a museum with me? Yeah, plans just came up. So really sorry, I can't really make it. 5 attempts later, I think I got the hint. You know, I'm a bit slow on the uptake. Five phone calls later, I'm like, okay, so this dude actually doesn't want to hang out. Right. So the point here is this. Swedes are really hard to make friends with. They will go out of their way to help you. But if you want to actually hang out with them, get to know them and learn the name of their doggy, it's going to take a lot of effort. Now I have Swedish friends. I've lived here since 2009. So I'm like, 11 years in this country. So I've made my fair share of friends. But I must tell you, it is hard work. But like I once stated at an event at Swedcham, Swedes are like a coconut, right? It's very, very hard to get in. But once you get in, it's effing sweet, right? It's really good. So once you get inside that coconut, you are really good with them. You're going to be friends forever. Literally, you can't get rid of them then, right? So it's either one way or the other. There's no middle ground, so to speak. So that's the thing with Swedes as far as the friendliness is concerned. But then you also start noticing other things, like, for example, the egalitarian part of Sweden and things like that. So there's those things which are not challenges. Those are actually awesomeness, right? Like, those are really great things that you actually learn to talk to people with their first name and things like that. How I call Renato and Jonas is Jonas. It's not señor or it's not professore or any of those things. There are no titles. There's no prestige. You interact with people on a first name basis, which actually creates a lot of possibility for you to learn from them, but also teach them because they are willing to learn, right? And that is something that took me time, because what happens is basically when you come from a hierarchical society like Brazil has or like India has, you call everybody by a title. You rarely use somebody's name, right? Unless they're a friend, you rarely use their name. It's either a sir or an uncle or an aunt or a professor or whatever. There's a title for whatever it is. A plumber is a plumber. He's not Jack, right? There is no electrician by the name of I don't know, Guillaume. He's or Guilherme, right? He is the plumber or the electrician. That's it. So that kind of difference is something that's actually difficult to imbibe and to use. So that was a challenge for me. And then of course, as time goes by, you learn this. And then of course, there is the perspective of the language. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually move to the next part, and that's the how to adapt to Swedish culture. So once you start, like the 5 phone calls and figuring out, okay, these people are like this, then you start adapting. If you're smart, you start using the things that they make difficult for you, you will use it against them. As in, they are usually conflict averse. They usually don't want to have a conflict with you, right? So if you are going to create a conflict, they're going to back away from it, usually. So you can use this to your advantage, which is basically what I did when it comes to language. So I wanted to learn Swedish, and I love languages. So like I'm trying to learn Brazilian Portuguese, same thing I try to do with Swedish. And so back when I arrived, I started doing all kinds of Swedish lessons. These days we actually, so to give you context again, students who get admitted now have to pay fees. So from Brazil, students who apply with a Brazilian passport will have to pay fees to study at Chalmers, but they will be guaranteed accommodation. So that question is solved. Like what problem I had, you won't have. What problem I didn't have, you will have, right? Then there is the language part. You will actually get lessons from us. So we will actually give you Swedish lessons and things like that. So there are a lot of these things that you are getting that I didn't get. So for example, trying to learn Swedish, I did a lot of different kinds of things and I tried to learn the language. And so when I walk into a store, one of the things that I would do would be to force people to speak Swedish with me. This doesn't always work because Swedes are also, just like the Japanese, they are a face-saving culture. So that therefore, what they would try to do is to avoid making a situation where you will look like you are foolish or having a problem, right? So what they will do immediately when they hear that you have a bad accent or you have bad vocabulary, they will immediately switch to English. And Swedes are damn good at English. And they love to speak English. So they're always trying to improve their English. So this is a real big disadvantage for people who want to learn Swedish, right? It's not that Swedish is a difficult language. It is that Swedish is a language that is spoken by people who love to speak English. So if you can speak English, you're in trouble now. Right? So what happens is this. So what I would do is first, so I have to start with, I actually have a good ear for sounds, so I can repeat sounds pretty well. But that said, my pronunciation was good, my vocabulary was bad. So what I would do is I would walk into any space. It could be a store, it could be a restaurant, it could be anything. I would walk into a space and start speaking broken Swedish. And when they switch to English, I will immediately start a fight, kind of, right? Like I'll argue. So you don't want me to learn your language? And they'll be like, oh, no, that's not what I meant, blah, blah. Like they immediately go on the back, like, oh my God, maybe I made this person feel bad. And now I'm using the fact that they're conflict averse and that they are face saving against them to my advantage. So I force them to speak Swedish with me. Thus I learn the language, and which helps me integrate into Swedish society much better. So it's very important to try and take as much advantage of your opponent's weaknesses, so to speak, in order to gain your advantage. And in this particular case, it was learning the language, right? Which was the ultimate aim. And so adapting to Swedish culture usually takes a little bit of understanding how they think and why they do the things they do in the way they do it. So things like, for example, dressing up. Like I was just before everybody walked into the session, we were having this discussion about my background and how it is so much in contrast to the actual background that I have. The actual background I have is autumn weather. It looks really beautiful on pictures and stuff, but when it gets rainy, it gets really rainy. And there's on the west coast, which is where we are, right? Gothenburg is on the west coast of Sweden, so there's a lot of wind. So the wind plus rain is a potent combination, because something that is supposed to be 14 can feel like 10. Right? And I'm talking about degrees Celsius here. I'm not talking about kilometers per hour. So it can be pretty, difficult to deal with unless you're the smart one that figured out, ooh, in Sweden, there is a proverb. There is no bad weather. There is only bad clothing. So if you dress wrong, it's your problem. You dressed wrong. The weather is not wrong. The weather is just the weather. You're the one that made the mistake, so go fix it. And you learn this over time. So adapting to Swedish culture is a matter of trying to understand what it is that they find important. Why do they find those things important? Like food is important, right? Coffee, the fika culture is very important in Sweden. And it actually is built on, on the concept of schedules. So fika is actually built on a concept of schedules. Think about it. If you realize that a fika is actually something that is almost a legal requirement. There is, I think, in the law, if I'm not mistaken, maybe Renato and Jonas, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there is actually a law kind of that states the 10 o'clock fika and the 3 o'clock fika. Am I wrong about this?
I'm not sure if it's a written law, but people follow it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's an unwritten law in a way. It's an unwritten law in a way, if that is the case. But I've heard that it was actually in the law. Maybe I'm wrong. But regardless, there is this concept of the 10 o'clock fika and the 3 o'clock fika, which are actually scheduled coffee breaks in a day. Regardless of whether you're a student, whether you're employed, whether you're a housewife, it doesn't matter what you do. You have a 10 o'clock fika and a 3 o'clock fika, which is basically 20 to 30 minutes of you sitting down with a cup of coffee, something to eat, with friends or colleagues or whoever, to talk about nothing, right? You can discuss anything under the world. And of course, the most favorite topic to discuss, the weather. So everything can be discussed and anything can be discussed. And this is something that you will find in any workplace. And the most interesting thing about the fika culture is that it is something that is so versatile in its nature that you can apply it to a date. You can apply it to your parents. You can apply it to friends. You can apply it to colleagues. You can apply it to your wife. You can apply it to anybody, right? It takes on a character depending on who you are with and what the intention is. But there is something called a fika. That's it, right? So you can use this thing. You can take a fika with a potential employer. And that would be basically you trying to understand what opportunities you have at this organization or the job that you've just applied for, trying to find some gossip around it and things like that. There's a lot of aspects that are angles to this fika thing. So that's one thing. So there are a lot of these things that you would start identifying and taking advantage of. And that brings me to something that I would like to tell you. If you ever see our conversation was also about my life and my journey here, and sometimes you might find one of these people, and if you ever find one of these people, please catch them, because they're like my Pokemon versions. This is how evolution looks like, by the way. Darwin was talking about this when he was talking about evolution and writing the theory of evolution. This is how I evolved in Sweden. The first one is before I came to Sweden. The second one happened in Sweden, and the third one happened after I lived here for 8 years. So be careful. You might also grow a beard if you live in Sweden for too long. Yeah. Just to kind of add some accents to the things I've just said, perceptions are really powerful, and they can be powerfully wrong as well. So it's very important that when we look at certain cultures, it's that we try to look at as many angles as possible so that we can create as much of a holistic picture as possible, right? And Sweden is no exception to this. Swedes are very punctual. They love to be on time, so much so that if you say 10 o'clock, they mean 10 o'clock. They do not mean 10:01. They do not mean 9:59. They mean 10. Right? So time is a standard. It's not a commodity. You do not stretch it. You do not exchange it. You do not barter it. You don't do anything with it. It is a standard, right? And so it's kind of connected to respect, discipline, and reliability, basically. And there's one thing that got me through all of my time in Sweden, and that was positive thinking, basically. Something that I do even today, but I've kind of begun to change it a bit because it kind of conflicts a bit with my one of my other values, which is basically honesty. So when somebody asks me how you are, I often answered, and in principle, in the beginning, when I came to Sweden, my only answer was awesome. I could have been feeling like I'm crap, but I was always answering awesome. So I always had this very positive energy around me, which helped people actually connect with me. And that's something that I think people should try to take advantage of. You don't have to lie about how you feel, but having a positive outlook and a positive energy is useful. Beliefs are what will drive us, right? So it's very important that we believe in things that can create a reality for us, which is something that we can take advantage of. Yeah, no, that's not important. And this is one presentation, as I was saying, and then I will change this presentation to the other one that I have. Where is that? This one. Yeah, screw that, forget this. Well, okay, we can start here, right? Anyway, so here comes to my journey in Sweden as far as my university is concerned. So I did my master's at this university. I studied nanotechnology here. And after 2 years, during the 2 years of studying my master's, I was not part of the I was part of everything, literally. I was part of the student union. I was part of the dancing committee. I was part of the, I can't dance, by the way. I have 2 left feet, but I still joined the dance committee. I learned to foxtrot. I learned to waltz. I learned to cha-cha-cha, and I can't do any of those now, but I learned. Right. I tried to put myself in all sorts of places. So the university gave me a lot of opportunities, which is something that I think everybody should take advantage of. I think the 2 years that I studied at the university gave me an international outlook that I would not have gotten any other way. And this does not have to be it's only Chalmers or only Sweden, but I think Sweden and Chalmers do an exceptional job of it. So despite the fact that, of course, I do not have an experience from any other university in any other country, I would dare to go out on a limb to say that Chalmers probably offers you, if you are ever thinking of studying abroad, by the way, that is. I'm not trying to sell the university here. The point here is that the university actually gives you, and Sweden in general gives you an outlook, an international experience that is not the same actually as you would find in another European country or in the US or any of these large destinations for students. I don't know what it is. I have a feeling that it is the kind of values that Sweden has, the values of equality and the values of non-hierarchical nature of the society, and that there is a lot of independence and critical thinking that is encouraged, and so on and so forth. And I think those aspects actually, and then of course, also one really important thing is that Sweden actually has a rather high demand on you. So when you make an application, you are expected to be of a certain caliber, and that caliber happens to be a pretty high caliber. So the kind of people you're interacting with are not people that just you would brush away. Those are people that are actually smart and are worth their salt, and therefore you will learn something from them. So it is, and then you throw in the international angle, and then you start getting these cultural perspectives and the technical expertise that the country itself is actually very famous for, so on and so forth. Now, of course, I'm speaking about technical perspectives because I work at a technical university. I'm an engineer by education, but I'm a marketer by trade. So after my master's, I basically started working as a marketing manager, so to speak, at the university. So at Chalmers. So currently I'm employed at Chalmers with marketing and communications, working with international student recruitment, right? So part of my job is also to try and attract some of you to come and study at my university. With that said, the point here is that the country is technically advanced, and it has done that in a very short span of time. In just about 100 years, they have taken themselves from being poor to being one of the most affluent countries in the world. Right? And that is only because of the fact that they managed to be technically advanced. So they've managed to become very good with trade and technology, which has gotten them to the point where they are. So it's a good place to learn about things that they are strong for. So what are they strong for? They're strong when it comes to non-partisan, being non-partisan when it comes to the world, right? So they are known to be neutral, kind of like Switzerland. We are neutral in Sweden. We take an independent approach to our lives and to education. We take a critical thinking approach to anything and everything. We are hierarchically flat. We are what else would I use there? I would say we are egalitarian, so on and so forth. So these values are what throws Sweden, catapult Sweden, if you will, to the forefront of many of these lists, the ranking list, the whatever, blah, 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 around the world. You're able to get a high quality experience from the country simply because of the fact that it lives, breathes, and eats, sleeps these values, right? So that's something for you to think about. So yes, you're young professionals, you're part of a Swedish network, so you've already gotten your eyes up, you're already thinking about Sweden in some way or the other. But here are some reasons, right? These are some other reasons which you may or may not have known, which are aspects that should also be a reason why you have your view towards Sweden. And then, of course, there is this little university in the city of Gothenburg called Chalmers University of Technology. We have like 39 master's programs. I'm just gonna we are basically focused on sustainability. So we always speak about sustainability when it comes to our education, and we make sure that it's part of our educations. We started in 1829, so we are a 191-year-old institution. We were started by this man called William Chalmers, who was the Elon Musk of the 1800s, basically. The man was super rich. And when he died, he was a bachelor. So unlike Elon Musk, he didn't marry. He doesn't have a kid that's called Usher Archangel 12. I don't even know why Elon Musk would do that to that kid. But anyway, naming that kid that was not a smart idea, in my opinion. Anyway, Gustav Dalén, our Nobel Prize winner. We educated the Sweden's first female engineer. We have 39 master's programs. They're all 2-year master's programs. They're all more or less engineering-based programs. There are a few technology management programs. We have 2 campuses, about 10,000 students, about 3,000 international students. We're located in Gothenburg. The region is a very expansive region. It's extremely, actually, it's actually a how do you call this? It's a very vibrant part of Europe. It's expanding pretty quickly. There's a lot of startup and entrepreneurship and things like that going on, in addition to established industries. So Gothenburg, if you didn't know, is the headquarters of Volvo, headquarters of Saab, maybe not headquarters of Saab, but definitely headquarters of Ericsson, and so on and so forth. So Lots of big companies established here, international people coming from all over the world to study and work here. So it's a very international environment, very vibrant and international culture in the city. Young city, because of the fact that out of the 500,000 that live in the city, about 60,000 are students. So 1 in 10 people are actually students. We have our own space observatory. Yeah, we like to, kind of. Swedes, here's something. Swedes actually will not boast. So Swedes are very bad at marketing, right? So that's why they need people like me. I'm not Swedish. I'm Swedish by naturalization now, but I'm Indian by birth, and so I'm very good at beating my own chest. And so I have to beat my chest for Sweden. I have to blow their trumpet, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to sell themselves, which is why I have a job. We're ranked pretty high in the world. We have a lot of connection to industry. Group projects are a part of everything you do. We are ranked #1 in the world, actually, when it comes to satisfaction, when it comes to as far as education is concerned. We offer Swedish lessons. There's a lot of international environment, and then guaranteed accommodation, unnecessary information. These are the programs. Oh, our application period is open now. So if there are any engineers here, I would recommend you to actually make the application. I'm going to show you this slide here to actually point out the programs that are within management. So these are the 4 management programs, and these programs, out of these programs, you would actually be able to take this one, Entrepreneurship and Business Design, takes designers, lawyers, and engineers. So if you're a lawyer or a designer or a business graduate, you can actually apply to the first program here, Entrepreneurship and Business Design, right? And if you have a graphics design background and you want to study something like game design or something like that, I would say that you would be studying something called, let's see, Interaction Design and Technologies, right? So, or psychology. If you have a psychology background or a cognitive science background, you would be studying that program. Every other program literally needs an engineering or a statistics or a mathematics kind of background, just so you know. So I'm basically doing a shameless plug here, right? Trying to sell the university. There's a there's a website. You can just go to our website to make an application. We've got scholarships for Brazilian students, so you've got no issues. But if you have a European background, so if you've got parents, grandparents, no, not parents, but grandparents or great grandparents who are from Europe, and you can try and obtain a European passport, then you can actually study for free in Sweden and at Chalmers. So Sweden offers free education to people with a European passport. So if you can do that, then good for you. Otherwise, we have scholarships for you, right? We will skip this stuff. We will skip this stuff, this stuff, this stuff. These are all just details. What you should know is we have this one. This is important because you can actually talk to students on campus. You can also talk to me. So in case you have any questions, let's say you're suddenly interested, okay, maybe I want to study at Chalmers. Just let me know, scan this code or go to this URL. You can chat with me. Just go to the staff tab on the page instead of this prospective student tab, or you can go to the prospective student tab and talk to our students. And that's our social media. And we are done with that part of the presentation. So I will stop the sharing and just say this. Basically, my life in Sweden has been a roller coaster. I've been almost kicked out of the country, let's say about 7 times since I came to Sweden. This is because I've had difficulties with my work permit. So I got employed at Chalmers, right? I got employed at Chalmers. My employment was always 6 months at a time in the beginning. So each time I joined, have fun, Renato Alves from Electrolux. Cool, nice seeing you. Thanks for joining. So yeah, I almost got kicked out of the country for like 7 times because each time I would have only a 6-month permit. So that 6-month permit would expire, and then I have to get a new contract and apply for a new permit. And then during this time I'm in a limbo, and it's a bad situation, right? So I've almost been kicked out of the country about 7 times, including my student years. So there was also a problem during my student years, which I won't go into right now. That's a much longer story. It has too many dramatic details to actually say here. Maybe there's a part 2 to this session. What do I know, right? But yeah, but despite that, I love this place, and I would say that anybody that wants to come here should just look up the rules, because Swedes in general are rule-abiding people. They're very law-oriented. So it's good to know what the rules are, in which case you would manage to do what you're supposed to do. And if you manage to do what you're supposed to do, you will not have a problem. That's it. So the things that are important for Sweden, right? The 4 things that are important for Sweden: networking, language, grades. Of course, if you're a student, then grades would be really important. But otherwise, I would say the 4th one would be visibility, kind of showing that you're volunteering, you're interested, you want to help, you want to be part of something, so on and so forth. These are the things that would be the 4 most important things as far as Sweden is concerned. So your experience, if you have these 4 things, your experience in Sweden is going to be, I would say, excellent. The end.
Okay.
If you've got any questions for me, please feel free to destroy me.
That was great, Abhilash. Thank you for the presentation. Yes, any questions? You can put on your microphone, or you can write.
Exactly. And I'm really sorry that I speak super fast. I'm a very, very fast speaker. I can actually be faster than this, but I'm trying to keep it slow. Yes, Renato.
Abhi, first of all, thank you so much for what a great presentation. It's always very inspiring to watch you and the way you describe your experience in Sweden. Absolutely fantastic. A question I have, which could be an interest of our colleagues watching your presentation today, is we hear here in Brazil that maybe because of the pandemic, many universities or courses are being only taught on the internet. So maybe some of the prospective students could be afraid of traveling to Sweden and having to study at home, at a home office in Sweden, not go into the university. Could you say a word on it, whether there has been any change? Because we hear in Brazil that the second wave is now dragging again EU or the European area or even Sweden. Maybe it's interesting for them to share a word in this respect, if you wish.
Absolutely. So as far as the pandemic is concerned, you're right. There is a second wave that's basically going through Europe right now. Countries like Italy and Germany are seeing large numbers. Sweden is not really seeing very much of a bad wave, but there is a second wave, so to speak, that is coming through Sweden as well. I would say that universities reacted really quickly already in March, right? So when the pandemic reached Sweden, I wouldn't say fast enough, but still they reacted as fast as universities can. Universities are slow organizations like governments. So they reacted pretty quickly and switched to online studies. That said, Sweden actually has a rule. So the Migrations Board actually has a rule that students cannot get a permit to travel to Sweden unless the university has a considerable amount of education that is being held on campus. So if a large part of your education is online, then you won't be given a permit, which is why education at Chalmers, for example, is actually a large part of it is still campus-based. And therefore, we actually have in place all the necessary requirements, all the necessary precautions to be able to reduce any kind of, to avoid any spreading and things like that. With that said, yes, there is a part of your education that is still being held online. So if you were to travel to Sweden for your studies, you would spend some of your studies online and some of your studies on campus. Now, this also will change with the kind of subject you're studying. Engineering is a very hands-on thing. unless you pick up something like computer science, programming and things like that, where you won't need to go to the university to be able to study or to do a lab, so to speak, right? But still you will need to go to the university to maybe do some kind of in-person tutoring or something like that. You will still need to go to the university. So there is Chalmers is basically a university where a considerable amount of education is still being campus based, right? So that aspect is not so much of an issue for us. I can't really speak for the other universities right now because I really don't know. However, I can also say that I think it was the 9th of October, the Minister for Higher Education was actually holding a press conference. And that's the last time I think she actually made a statement. I'm not sure about this. I could be wrong. Maybe it was the 9th of October. It should be the 9th of October. And the statement she made was this, that there is a second wave. About 200 students have so Sweden has about 400,000 students. You must realize that Sweden is a very small country, right? There's only 10 million people. So for those of you that don't know this, we have a population that is like half the size of Sao Paulo. Right. So the country is a fairly small country, and out of 10 million people, we have about 400,000 students. So of these 400,000 students, about 200 students were infected, had COVID, and this was, I think, sometime in the end of September or something like that. And so what they said was basically that there are about 200 people, and we consider all students to be adults, and they are adults, so they should be responsible for themselves and for everybody else. So we want you to think about this and things like that. And then she stated that if push comes to shove, we will be forced to shut down universities, so to speak, like to force universities to go to complete online. But as long as students are able to take care of themselves and universities are able to kind of manage this situation, there will not be that necessity.
Thank you so much, Abhi. Very clear. Thank you.
Yeah. The pandemic is always going to be a discussion point. I think it's going to be a discussion point for the next 5 years. At least the next 2 years. But yeah.
So you don't think that life will be back to normal in August, September next year?
Oh, definitely.
Many courses are starting, right?
I don't believe so. I think so. So this is the thing. Apparently, some Nobel Prize winner recently, I think it was this week or maybe last week, they made a statement that a vaccine will be found in November. I don't know where these people get their information from, but all you ever hear about vaccines is that they are failing left, right, and center, right? Everybody that had a vaccine candidate has either a side effect or a problem or somebody died or whatever, right? There's always some kind of issue. And even if a vaccine does come through, my understanding is that it's going to take time before it actually percolates through the entire society. It has to go through all of the world's 7 billion people. Right? Because there is no cure, it has to go through the whole world. The vaccine has to go through the whole world. And because of the way the world is built, the economic structures, the social structures are not egalitarian, which means that not everybody has access to the vaccine day one, right? There's going to be some people that have access to it day one and some people on day 365. So given this kind of a spread in accessibility to a vaccine, and given the kind of contagion, so the contagiousness of this thing is actually pretty high. So my reading, I mean, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a biologist or any kind of, I'm not associated with any of these kinds of sciences. I'm not a data scientist or anything like that. But common sense tells me that if this disease has to go through the world to create any kind of immunity, now assuming herd immunity is a possibility, it still has to go through at least 50% of the world. That's 3.5 billion people. We are still in the millions at the moment.
Yeah. So what would you say to Brazilians that are dreaming of going to Gothenburg or any other university in Sweden and study full-time IRL?
I would say, my statement is this: your reality, right? Everybody's reality, unfortunately, now is what this is, right? And of course, I'm saying what I'm saying about the pandemic, but I'm not making any predictions. I do not believe that what I'm saying is going to come true, but I do not believe that somebody else's prediction is going to come true either. Right. So
nobody
I take
knows.
everything with a pinch of salt. So with that stated, I would say anybody that wants to go to Sweden should actually think in terms of, okay, so if I'm going to go study in 2021, chances that it's going to be partially online is going to be there. There is some amount of possibility that it's going to be online. So I'm going to make the best of it. I'm going to go there, I'm going to study, and then I'm going to take my opportunities to make my physical contacts. Online stuff is becoming more and more important. Like, for example, how we're having this conversation. If this was any other year, I would have been in Brazil right now. I would have been actually sitting in the room you are sitting in right now, Jonas, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We would have been having this, the career fair at this point in time.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen because of this. So we're sitting on Zoom, and this is our current reality. So this is the kind of reality that I expect. I'm not saying it's a prediction. I expect part of this reality to continue into next year. So somebody that wants to study next year, or maybe the year after that. So 2022 might be a different story. 2022 might be much more possible that it's actually IRL, like you're sitting in a classroom, tables, chairs, blackboard, and projector. That could be the case, right? But 2021, I am not super sure about it.
Yeah.
But that does not discount the possibility of IRL studies, because you can still come to Sweden, you can still have the Swedish experience. You might not get the 100% experience, but you will get the Swedish experience. And the universities in Sweden work very hard to make sure you have that. Otherwise, what's the point of having a university and having international students? So we try really hard to make sure that that comes through.
That's a great message. Abhi, it's past 5 here in São Paulo, past 10 in Gothenburg right now. It's a late night for you.
Yeah.
To finish off, maybe mentioning the student fair on November 7th, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
The Swedish Institute is promoting a great fair, digital fair, on Saturday, November 7th. Chalmers will be there, and some 23 universities, I think.
So again, for those people that don't know, Swedish Institute is the same as DAAD for Germany, or Campus France for France, or any of these national organizations like Study in Canada or Study in the US, right? There are these national organizations which basically promote higher education. So Swedish Institute is a organization that works with promoting Sweden. And Study in Sweden is the version of DAAD or of Campus France. So that's the part of Swedish Institute that promotes Sweden as an education destination, and they are the ones who are going to be holding this online fair, where basically all the universities in Sweden, more or less, like I would say, I think we have like 30 universities in Sweden, and I think 25 of them are participating, or 23 of them are participating. So basically the ones that are not participating are the ones that you won't be able to go to. That's kind of what it is. Like you won't be able to go to the military university in Sweden. Like, you can't study to be an army officer. So those universities won't be a part of the fair, but most universities will be. And so you actually will have access to a wide variety of programs that you can, and universities, types of universities and types of locations. That's what's actually very interesting about Sweden, that a university can be located in a place which has a very unique nature to it. A university in Dalarna, which is a small place in the middle of Sweden, is so different to how Stockholm or Sweden, or Gothenburg, right? Gothenburg is a metropolitan city in its own right, but it's a very compact city, whereas Stockholm is a metropolitan city in its own right, and it's a very large city. And I mean, large again, not by Brazilian standards. Please, let's not compare Stockholm with Sao Paulo or Brasilia or Rio de Janeiro. I mean, oh my God. But Stockholm is large for Sweden, but Dalarna is like I said, it's a city that is not really a city, but it's still a city, right? It has its own supermarkets and movie theaters and everything. So you're not going to a village, even if you are, in a way. Sweden itself is a village in a way, when you think about the fact that the population is only 10 million people. But these locations, each one has a very unique nature to it. And that is going to be part of your experience. So it's not just the university and the program, it's also where you're going.
Abhi, last question. If anyone watches this webinar and gets interested in the presentation, is the presentation official? Can we send it to people? Or actually both of them, right? The first one is more about Sweden, coming to Sweden, and the second one is about Chalmers. Is that, right. Are they on the website?
I think the Chalmers, so I can of course make the Chalmers presentation available to you, Jonas, not a problem. But the first presentation is actually, I don't know, I'm kind of confused whether anybody would actually want to see 4 slides on punctuality, perception, and positivity. I think that I mean, I can of course make that presentation available. I'll only take away the slide that has the Pokemon evolution of Abhi. I'll take that away. But I think I can give you the other slides. But I have a feeling that those slides will not make sense without me speaking, context to it. Because otherwise, it's just a presentation that says perception, positivity, and something else, punctuality. Like, okay.
I see what you mean. No, send us the Chalmers one then in a PDF format. We can
definitely,
okay.
Okay. Absolutely.
Very good, Abhi. That was great.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And really hope to have you here next time at the chamber in Sao Paulo.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to it. This is my first year after 2014 that I've not been in Brazil, so I'm a bit sad about it.
Next year.
Next year, Picanha. Next year.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for those of you who stayed with us. Let's keep in touch. See you soon again.
Thanks, Abhi.
Of course.
Thanks, Abhi. Good to see you, my friend.
Bye, Renato.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.